Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremy Morton. I'm the CEO and founder of Expert TA. Let me first start by welcoming everyone and thanking you for taking the time to join us today. We know that these have been challenging times. During the spring semester, we were all thrust into an online-only mode of education, and many of us were unsure how to administer exams in a way that we had confidence in the outcomes. We have been focused at Expert TA on academic integrity for some time. We've learned quite a few lessons along the way, especially in the spring semester towards the end. We're going to share that information with you today, and hopefully it's going to be helpful. Let's talk about the agenda for the day. We're going to do a little bit about company background. We're going to provide you with an overview of OpenStax. We're joined by Courtney Raymond, and she's going to spend about 10 minutes talking about the resources available. We have a background and overview of academic misconduct. We're going to take a tour of the academic integrity tool and the Expert TA system, and we're going to answer any questions that you have, and we're also going to talk about frequently asked questions like the cost of Expert TA. So Expert TA started all the way back at my PhD, which was mechanical and aerospace engineering. It was the topic of my PhD dissertation, was originally designed for statics and dynamics in engineering. We launched as a company in 2012, and the product was focused towards introductory physics. We spent 6 years dedicated to that subject, and based on the partnership that we have with OpenStax, have since developed biology and astronomy and are opening up into additional subjects that they service. Okay, let's go back to the agenda and let's talk about the background and overview of academic integrity misconduct. I want to start with this quote that I really like. It's from Dan Ariely, who is a behavioral psychologist at Duke University. And I'm just going to read the quote. It says, 1% of people will always be honest and never steal, the locksmith said. Another 1% will always be dishonest and always try to pick your lock and steal your television. And the rest will be honest as long as the conditions are right. But if they're tempted enough, they'll be dishonest too. Locks won't protect you from the thieves who can get in your house if they really want to. They will only protect you from the mostly honest people who might be tempted to try otherwise if you're not putting in place the restrictions that you need to. There's a body of research that suggests that this is the same mindset that students have, that if the conditions are made to be right within a classroom, that you're going to get mostly honest students. Now, of course, this typically applies to homework rather than exams, where homeworks are a little lower stakes, but we're going to address both of those. The next slide that we're looking at here is really more geared towards homework. There's a few slides here that are taken from a presentation that I did at the American Association of Physics Teachers Conference back in 2016. Clearly, we've been thinking about this for quite some time. And so these slides in the beginning are from that original presentation. The slides towards the end are going to cover all of the work that we've done since. So this is the spectrum of students who are going to cheat continued. And it identifies the different groups and whether or not we can help them. So what about the students who don't need to cheat and therefore don't because they're the ace students who just get the material? Can we help them? Yes, by letting them differentiate themselves. No longer are they getting a 98 on the homework and so is everyone else in the class. What about students who don't cheat on principle? We can help them by not having them feel like the worst student in the class because of the 82 that they honestly earned. Students who do cheat because they feel like they have to, because there's a pressure environment with all of their fellow students around cheating, yes, we can help them. They have less discipline, but if there was a level playing field, they wouldn't be pressured into cheating and they would be okay earning their 82. Surveys from students and the research done here actually shows that. What about the students who are going to cheat no matter what? No, we're unlikely to either help or stop these students. These are the students who are going online to get someone to write an entire paper for them or paying someone to take a class for them in an online capacity. You're unlikely to do anything about that. And then instructors who want more accurate assessments. Yes, we're able to help them by giving them more differentiation in their students. They can feel like they trust in the outcomes more. And of course, this bubbles all the way up and reflects upon the reputation of the institution where you are. So this is very important stuff. Okay, going briefly over the research, Don McCabe and a group of faculty that worked with him across several universities did a collection of research papers back in the 80s, and there's two that are listed here. They found that honor codes had a tremendous impact. Dan Ariely, who I mentioned at Duke already, he has done a number of experiments. He gave a TED Talk. I like this anecdotal story about MIT, where there's a research project that out of the psychology department that involved students showing up. They were told at the door, they were met by a TA, go into the room, there's dice on a table, and there's a piece of paper. Roll the dice, and then look at the piece of paper. It tells what the winning combinations are. If you won, come out and tell me, you get a $5 Starbucks gift card. If you didn't win, that's okay, you don't get anything. 70% of the students coming out of that room reported that they had won, when mathematically only 40% of the combinations were actually winning combinations. They did this with enough students that the math worked out. So then they made one subtle change to this. The student showed up, they were told the same instructions, but then as the student was walking into the room, they were stopped and reminded that the MIT honor code applied. Now, close to 40%, just a little bit over 40% of students report winning that matched with the statistics. And so you could see that it did have a big impact on the overall body of students doing this. The most comprehensive research was a decade of research by McCabe and his group, and that's presented on the next page. And it did suggest a whole collection of things that instructors could think about. We've highlighted some of those that are applicable to an online system like Expert TA. Of course, item number 4 here, be supportive when dealing with students. That is something that is clearly important, but that's in the role of the instructor. As far as what Expert TA can do to help out with, those are highlighted here. Establish an honor code. Clearly communicate with your students. You're going to see as we go through the Expert TA system later that you as the instructor have the ability to turn on an honor code page that's presented to the students each time they start an assignment. And you have the ability to customize this language to reflect your own class and university policies. Other important things, remove opportunities to cheat, and then also deter cheating with harsh penalties when you do have students who violate the rules. This is where we've spent the majority of our time over the past 2 years. We've added in-system features that really do a compelling job of keeping students from cheating in the standard ways that they cheat. We're going to outline those in a few minutes. And then, because we want to help the community where possible, we built a tool that's an offline tool that we're giving away to everyone who's here and any other instructors who want, just so that they have the ability to leverage these ideas even outside of the Expert TA system. Let's move on and talk about removing opportunities to cheat and what those opportunities are. One way students work to get around the system is by getting together in groups and sharing answers. And one of the ways that you can address that is by having variations in an exam, different versions of it, so that not every student has exactly the same problem. Well, we're going to be able to show that we take this to a very high degree and have a lot more variation than what's practical outside of the system. But this is something that you can do outside of any online homework system. Okay, another way that students will try to cheat is by posting a question that they have online by either taking a photo or screen capture and then putting it out to some website. And this picture here to the side is an example of that. You can see the problem statement. You can see it's small, but I'm telling you where it is. It's not meant to be read here, just more of an illustration. But this is a copyright at the Expert TA, and then there is a step-by-step answer that has been provided here. Unfortunately, this is a world that we live in, and we have to think about on homework. If we want students to get value out of those assignments, they have to really be doing the work themselves. Because if they're just getting the answers elsewhere, they're not going to be mastering the topic. It's just not a recipe for success. And of course, on high stakes assignments like exams, it's even more important to have things in place for this. So what can you do? You can put in place tracking mechanisms, and you can also monitor the web for your problem. It's very easy. If you go to Google and you simply search for your problem statement that you've authored to go onto your exam, Google does a good job of connecting you with any results where students have posted that out. Places where students will post them are Yahoo Answers, for example. It's a very good site, Yahoo, and it's used in a lot of productive ways. But unfortunately, students do use that also to get answers, to have someone else provide them with an answer to their exam question. You certainly should be removing your copyrighted content. Yahoo Answers and other websites always have copyright policies, and they are good about actually taking down the material when you do a reporting. Let me go over to another area here. This is Chegg.com's Intellectual Property Rights Owner Program. You can see in the bullet points here, they indicate that they quickly remove listings that are reported by the copyright owner. And there are other things that they say that they do here. We would strongly encourage you to monitor the web for your exam questions by simply searching for them. And then also, if there are individual sites where your problems wind up showing up a lot, you can search directly from within those sites. And then when you find your copyrighted material, you can see here that Chegg has provided a way for you to let them know about this, and they are good about taking down those results. We established a relationship with Chegg 6 years ago, and you can see here from this tab where I'm logged into main@theexpertta.com's inbox that we've been sending emails for the last 7 years, at least once a week, sometimes twice, with all of the problems that we've identified that are ours that have made their way up. These are not just our questions, they're any questions that are in our system. So if you put custom content in, you'll be under this protective umbrella, and we can have those problems removed on your behalf. This is a service we've been providing to OpenStax for some time. You can see here, this is just an example of what a message looks like. In the past, you promptly removed our copyrighted content. This was sent Friday, and you can see, thank you for bringing this to our attention. The content you reported has been removed. We always go back and rerun our web crawler that looks for our problems to make sure that those problems were removed. This is something that you can do yourselves, however, without going through Expertia to make that happen. Okay, if you really want to be able to do the last thing and deter cheating with harsh penalties, you have to be able to identify the students who have broken the rules. How can you go about doing that? Putting visible student-specific information in the form of watermarks and tracking IDs within the problem statement area. Visible, personally identifiable information can go in as well. And the most powerful thing that we have at our disposal is being able to randomize the questions. And this is the thing that the tool that we're providing, the free tool, is going to help you out with, is randomize question information so that it's unique to each student. Of course, if you have random numbers, students have to do their own calculations. But if you have enough randomization such that only one student has a specific set of numbers, that can actually be used as information to track back to them. We also have the ability within our system and the tool to do randomization of words and phrases, and that's another way to make a problem unique for each and every student. Let's now talk about this free tool that we're circulating. This is an Excel VBA-based solution, so it's really going to predominantly work on a Windows platform. If you're a faculty member and you're a Mac user or a Linux user, it's possible that we could get a form of this that's compatible, or you may just have to find a computer lab or have an administrator help you out, but at least this is something that is now a tool that you've got. So from within Excel, you can author questions that are able to include different numbers and wording for each student. You can paste in a list of all of your students in the class and their student IDs. The program generates a folder that contains a password protected Word file for every student in your class, and it also makes a zipped up version of that. And so now all of these Word files, the problems in there are forced that only one student has that specific wording and those specific numbers. You can either distribute the files individually if your class is small enough, or you could post the zip file up to your LMS system. And since they're password protected, only the student who's supposed to get into their file can get into it. So then you can monitor the web by searching for your problem statements. And whenever you find a problem, our tool will let you type in the specific wording that is in there and the specific numbers, and it can tell you which student was the offending student who made that post. Hopefully this is helpful. Let me go over here and we're going to take a look at this now. I have a problem that is mostly pre-created and just a few steps to fill in, so you can see a couple of the points of action in here. The problem statement down below, you can see that a 75 kilogram man pushes a crate 2.5 meters up along a ramp. It's a typical kind of physics question that you might ask on a final exam. And then, of course, you would probably ask the student to solve for the total amount of work that was done. I put the problem statement into this area, and then already I've replaced the numbers like 75 with M standing for mass, and I put the double percent encoding that's required around those variables. So you can see what that's like for a numeric randomization. And then here with the word man, I've put double percents around there. That's going to be a placeholder for a random word. And you can also do random phrases with spaces in between so that it's multiple words. Okay, at this point, we have all combinations possible are 0 because we haven't completed the random number information. And that's something that I wanted you to see build up. We do have in the program, it's identified that there's 144 students in the class. One thing that's going to be important is we have enough variation to handle that. I'm going to go through and say for mass, the values between a min 65, a max of 80, and I'll just make that a step size of 1. You can see the combinations grow up to 16. I'm going to make the distance d go from 1 to 3 with a step size of 0.1. Now you can see that even with just those two, we have enough combinations to support a unique problem statement for every student. But I'll go ahead and just add in these additional variables so that that increases even further. We'll finally make this a step size for the force between 450 and 500 with a step size of 5. And I'm already at 56,320 total possible problem statements that could be generated out of this. So you can see it's quite easy to get to the numbers for any size class that you're dealing with. And then finally, I'll put in here that instead of a man pushing a crate up, I could say we always have to, that's the placeholder, and then we'll include man as an option. Person, worker, and you can see the total combinations growing. At this point, to add in this problem, I simply give the problem a name, and I can click the add button. It takes 15 or 20 seconds to go through, process. We can see that it's creating a different problem statement for every single student. You get a 76 kilogram man versus a 69 kilogram person. The other numbers would also be varied as well. The program itself is designed such that it forces a unique set of these variables for each student. So there's no chance that you might get unlucky and the program has two for, two different students have the same set of numbers. Okay, at this point, I'm not going to click to create the Word documents, but it does generate a folder that contains password protected files for you that you can circulate to your students. The reason I'm not going to click it is this normally does take between 1.5 minutes and 3 minutes, and I just don't want to take the webinar time for that. Let's look here at an example of a problem that does not have any numbers in it. This is from a history exam that was given at the end of this past spring semester by Dr. Brian Hosmer, who is the department head of the Department of History, Oklahoma State University. And I have gone in and made random phrases and words here, but there's not yet enough combinations. So you can see that if we went in and we tried to add this problem, it would give us a warning and say that we don't have enough information for all students to be covered. And so at this point, what I'd like to do is just add one in. So here it says, draw upon the material covered all semester and supplying. So what we could do is just add in the double percents that are required. And down below, we could put that information in and say also providing. Now we're going to have enough combinations to get a unique statement for every single student, and we can move forward. Just wanted to illustrate that this works even for subjects that don't have numbers. Okay, hopefully that is clear as to how this tool outside of any online system could allow you to put variations in problems to make the statements and the questions unique to individual students, and that's going to allow you to track back to specific students. Let's talk about how this works in the Expert TA system. Question development and entry. We can get you access to an environment where you can code in your own questions in a basic way. You can also utilize Expert TA's content team to help us develop your material. This is how most instructors operate. They submit questions to us in one of a couple of different templates that we have, and then our content development team enters in those questions, makes them available in an area that only those instructors with that instructor can access, and then we can even help to create the assignments within Expert TA that those problems are supposed to go into. We do that through our customer service. So if we know these are your exam questions, we can go ahead, we can build out that exam for you and put on the dates that you specify. We have additional features and automation that you should know about. There's no need to distribute the individual files or post the zip file to the LMS system. All of the assignments are taken directly from within the Expert TA system. Students would log in and they would see homework one, and as they initiate it, the randomization happens there, and there are in-system tools to be able to track back to students if you find a problem that's been posted online. So the additional security features that we have are invisible watermarks and some other digital tracking mechanisms that are just not possible to do in an offline version. You're going to get to see what those look like here in a little bit. We also have advanced date time features. You can set up a timed assignment. You can put that into a window, a date range that states the availability of that 60-minute assignment. It can be taken over the course of 3 hours or 90 minutes. And it's turnkey operation. Once the questions are created and in the system, you simply put them into an assignment and you're ready to go. So it's a little bit less on the logistics side than if you're trying to deal with the offline tool. At this point, we're going to go in and we are going to take a tour of the system. This is me logged in to Expert TA as an instructor, and we've got a few different classes that we want to go through because we want to demonstrate question types that would be relevant to the various subjects that are present for the attendees who are out there. Okay, this is the basic environment. You can see that there's an area at the top where we can post additional class resources, and this could be something like a formula sheet that is needed for the exam. You have an area below that contains all of the assignments that you've created so far, and you have the ability through the main class menu to do things like student TA registration, manage your roster, and also, of course, create new assignments. We are not going to be able to go through all of the features of the Expert TA system today. However, if you find what you see compelling and you would like a more comprehensive tour of all of our features, simply reach out to us. We can do a dedicated demo that shows those. Okay, one thing that is important that we want to talk about is the instructor grade preferences, especially those specific to exams. From the top menu, I just clicked grade preferences. To the left, you can see that there are a few academic grade preference templates that are available here. Exams, quizzes, readings. You would only see instructor default when you first came in here, but you have the ability to create as many templates as you want, to name them whatever is appropriate. When you click through here, the structure to the right doesn't really change. It's only the parameters that are in these fields. And so for an exam, you may want to only allow one submission attempt. In an exam, you may want to turn off the ability for students to have access to hints and feedback. You certainly would want to limit access to the correct answer. When you're in homework on a multi-step problem, if a student uses up all of his or her attempts on part A of a problem, you quite commonly want them to see what the right answer was so they can build the rest of their problem on a solid foundation. But in an exam, it certainly makes sense to conceal that information, and it also makes sense to conceal the information about whether or not a submission was correct. So if they do get the right answer, you don't necessarily want to tell them that they did, because that could potentially be shared with a fellow student. These are some of the features related to customization of assignments that apply primarily to the security part of things. So from within the academic integrity templates, there's three things that you should concern yourself with. One is a recommendation from us. Communicate with your students very early. Put onto the syllabus what resources are and are not allowed on all of the different assignment types. If you don't want them going to the internet and posting a problem to be solved, let them know right away your expectations of them. Because amazingly enough, studies show that students don't always associate that kind of behavior with cheating. We're so used to pulling our phones out of our pocket and searching for some piece of information. It just feels like an of that, and you think that you're using a resource rather than actually doing something that's wrong. And there are surveys and studies that show that these are attitudes that students currently have. Also, in the area here, you're going to see a section on academic integrity and honor code policy page. We have our terms of service, which you can choose to turn on. Basically says that the problems are copyrighted. It's expressly forbidden for them to put those out to the internet, and that if we find those, we track back to a student, they can lose access to their account. We're probably not going to do this, especially without consulting with the instructor, but it serves as a good threat to the students and makes them think twice. You can also come in and you can customize the language for whatever your class policies are. The last section is on in-assignment deterrence. This is the remove opportunities to cheat part that we talked about earlier. The ways in which students are posting problems online, as stated earlier, is that they're taking a picture with their camera or they're taking a screen capture and they're putting it out. Well, if there is identifiable information in the form of a tracking ID or their username, then it's an obstacle and an extra thing they have to do. They would have to go in and black that information out rather than posting it directly to the web. They would have to put it into a Photoshop or something similar. These are the in-system features that are at your disposal. Let's go back in now, and there was homework 5, so let's go and create homework 6 together at this point. Again, we talked about the weight. Again, we talked about being able to apply the academic integrity template that you've got. You have the ability to change all of the dates that are associated with the assignment here, the publish date, the start, the due, and the end date. And then you have the ability to shop for the problems that you want to put into this assignment. You are typically going to have the Expert TA Introductory Physics Collection or whatever subject. If you're teaching biology, we have the resources built out for, again, biology, astronomy, A&P, US history, and some others. You would have that resource, but you would also have a custom collection that we helped you to create. where all of your own exam questions would live, and you'd be able to select from those as well. I do want to show you what it's like to choose problems, and I'm going to add one in here called Learning Expert TA Basic Navigation. We've designed a few questions that we encourage every instructor to do at the beginning of the semester, where there's a video at the top and it walks students through how to access their grades, how to input certain question types, and other things they'll need to operate within the system. And then there are answers and questions here that they have to go through to show that they watched the video and they understand that. If you put these into your assignments early, you're going to get far fewer emails from students about how to perform specific actions, and that goes towards a much smoother start to your semester. Okay, so I'm going to go down and choose Chapter 5. This is all of our Physics 1 content that services both the algebra-based and calculus-based OpenStax university physics and college physics textbooks. And so you can see here that we've got a lot of coverage across Physics 1 up to Chapter 20, and then you've got Physics 2 starting in Chapter 22. Okay, the way that we designed this interface to look, we wanted it to feel like you had opened a textbook to the end of the chapter, and the display that you get shows the problem statement, shows an associated image if there is one, and all of the individual questions that students are going to have to answer as they go through. And I'd like to just add a problem now right here that is a multi-step problem that has a couple of interesting question types for physics. And then I want to do one more demonstration that's related to academic integrity and security of the exams, and that's something called question pools. You can see here there's variations on this particular problem. When you author your questions, you can make variation by the phrases and the numbers, but you could also just make different variations where you're asking students to solve for different things. So if you've got two projectile motion questions where in one a golfer's hitting a golf ball and another someone's throwing a football, they could ask students for slightly different things that are still covered under the same topic. And the idea is that now for this particular question on the exam, you can, instead of just adding it as an extra question, you can click on the radio button beside problem 3, and you can add the additional variations that you want into what we call a question pool. Let me just go back up to the top of this and select these 3 conceptual questions from the beginning of this chapter. I'll go back and click on the radio button at the top in order to add this in as problem 4. And now with that new problem, I can simply add in additional problems that are similar to that into the same bucket. And I want to show you that it's not limited to just 3. You can make this as many as you like. This is better than just having 3 versions of an exam, because the permutations and combinations, the math just states that it's very unlikely if you have an assignment with 10 questions and 4 options each, the total number possible resulting exams is 4 to the 10th. And that means that it's very unlikely that students have much overlap if they try and coordinate. Okay, let's leave the assignment creation. Let's go back out and let's go in and simply take this assignment so that you can see some of the in-assignment deterrents that we have. Here's the example of the video at the top. And I'd like to stop here at this point and make a recommendation. We had several schools in the spring semester that made problem number 1 on their exam be a video that was a custom message either from that specific instructor or the course coordinator reiterating the policies and also restating the things that were happening with the digital tracking, restating that each student's problem statement had random numbers and words, and warning them that if they did post those problems out, that there were realistic, legitimate ways to track back to that student. And for schools that took this approach, the reduction in students posting problems to be solved was dramatic. So we would encourage you to consider that as one way to really get this message to your students. Okay, you can see here as I click between the problems in this assignment, by just clicking on the numbers here to the left, you get the problems that I had already selected, and you can start to see some of the in-assignment deterrents. This is the username of the student, and if there was a first and last name, it would be displayed here as well. Here is a copyright at the expert TA, and there is a tracking ID that is specific to this user on this problem. I can simply be typed in. You can find out who posted this. Now, what's not visible is right here in large point font, one color value off of white, the information, the username, and the tracking ID is reiterated there. I'll show you an example of how this is used and talk a little bit, I guess, here about how several students were identified with the last exam of the assignment and the final exam this past spring semester, both through the random variables and the random wording and the watermark. Okay, here's an example just to show you some question types that would be available to you if you were building out assignments. For people doing physics, which is quite a bit of the audience here today, why I'm spending a little time talking about that, you have things like free body diagrams. Students can construct these and they can be graded in an automatic way, and they can be graded as more than right or wrong. Feedback can be provided to common mistakes. We can help you to develop these kinds of questions, and arguably this gives you a better idea of a student's level of understanding than asking for them to check one of 3 boxes or 4 boxes on a multiple choice question. They're active in the construction of this, and we would encourage you, if this is your subject, physics, putting questions like this on an exam is something that's going to give you a better idea probably of what students understand than if they just guess at a particular multiple choice item. This is the question type that is really foundational to physics, but is also used in many other subjects. It's relevant in accounting, it's relevant in economics. There's a lot of subjects that rely on having equations in variable form, and we have a really nice way to deploy this. There are some foolproof syntax protection features that we have in here, and I just want to demonstrate those because you want to make sure that whatever answer your student is putting in, whether it be on an exam, certainly on an exam, or on homework, that they're getting credit for that conceptual understanding. And if it's automatically graded, we need to make sure that it's accurate. So one of the things here that I'll point out is that the students are limited to a prescribed nomenclature. If we put F1 cosine theta minus F2 in, which is the correct answer, we can either click the buttons, but if we wanted to type in, even if I type in a lowercase f, it knows that there's only 2 variables that make sense. And if I tried to put in a variable that wasn't needed, like F7 or F_1, it wouldn't let me do it. So the students are absolutely going to get what they're expecting. And you can see that we can type in here as well. I just want to show you an example of feedback here while we're in this mode, because it's related to partial credit grading as well. Our system can catch equations that have a small mistake in it, and that affords for giving that student more credit on a specific problem. So I'm going to put in right here a couple of answers that are not correct. And then here on the last attempt, I'm going to put in F2 sine theta minus F1. And while we didn't get it right, we got some credit for that. On our last submission, it was identified that it appears that 2 of the variables, F1 and F2, were confused. And also there was a trig error. The student didn't get a 0 for this. They got some credit. On an exam, students are going to feel very happy about that to get something closer to what they deserve based on their representative understanding. Okay, this is an example of some of the question types we have for physics. And of course, we have simple numeric, We have multiple choice and true false, and you're going to be able to build out those questions as well. Let's go back to class management, and let's show two other question types. I'm going to go to our biology class now. I'm going to go into this example problems assignment, and I'm going to show you a drag and drop problem. This, just like free body diagrams, gives you a better read and a better differentiation between which students really understand the material than if you use multiple choice where a lot of guessing happens. Let me fill in this drag and drop labeling exercise, and I want to make a few mistakes as I do this. Sugar phosphate backbone and phosphodester bonds. I've made one mistake here. Instead of deoxyribose, I put ribose. When I click submit, it says specific feedback is available, and the feedback says for the structure of DNA, a different form of sugar is present. Now, how's this relevant for an exam? You're probably not going to be giving feedback. It's to demonstrate that our system can detect that. It can be coded in to detect these near misses, and then in your rubric, if you want this to be representative, where everything else is placed correct, and only one of these is not placed correctly, if you want them to be able to get partial credit for that, then the grade that they would get on this would be the fact that they have 2, 4, 5 of the 6 total items placed in the right spot, and they would get a 5 divided by 6 would be the grade that they would get there. So you can see that we are able to detect very specific mistakes. So here I'll switch out RNA versus DNA and put deoxyribose, which is right. And you can see that the feedback is different. Now, what I said a minute ago about how the grade is calculated can be overwritten by you, the author of the problem, if that's what you would like to do. So instead of giving them a 5 out of 6 for this, if you wanted to specify in your rubric some other percentage that made sense, you have the ability to do that. So these are interesting question types that open things up just a little bit more. Let's go back out and look in the astronomy, OpenStax astronomy collection. I'm going to go in and take this assignment, and here you can see the same technology that's been utilized in a slightly different way that allows us to do assignable readings that are automatically graded. The items to be moved around are the words or phrases, and the blanks are equivalent to the buckets. So at this point, I'm going to go in and fill this in, and I'm also going to make some mistakes. So this is the HR diagram, and it's who wants to know who this was named for. I'm going to incorrectly put Hubble. I'm also going to make a mistake here by switching the two axes, temperature and luminosity. I am going to correctly put in white dwarfs right here, but I'm going to make a mistake and put in luminosity sequence. If astronomy is not your subject, that's okay, but you could certainly imagine how assignable reading exercises would apply to any subject. Okay, I'm going to click submit, and again, we can see specific feedback is available, and there's quite a few. They correspond to each of the mistakes that are made here. And I'm just going to go through without reading all of these. I'm going to go through and fix these items. It says luminosity and temperature not in the right place. Well, they're switched. And it indicates that most of the stars in the main sequence, where most of the stars show up, I could read and I could find out, okay, that should be the main sequence. I think white dwarfs is right. And now if I submit it here, I still haven't fixed that Hubble being in the wrong spot. So maybe I overlooked that as a student. Okay, again, making the point really clear, even if you're not providing feedback on exams, the ability to detect all of this, not only can you have the feedbacks provided below, but the grading can vary. And having students who get, again, credit for how much of it they got right is an important thing. Okay, I'm just going to click to make my way to a correct answer, and we can see that we got an 82 here. All right, I want to show one other class here, just because this is a very common way that final exams are provided. I'm going to go in here into psychology. We have over 4,000 questions associated with OpenStax psychology. We have every multiple choice question from the book. We have the full instructor test bank, which is several thousand questions. We've also developed some additional material to go along with this. This would be a place that's a high enrollment for the introductory sequence course where you would see common exams, and of course those would be multiple choice questions. You see a lot of this in Chemistry 101 where there's 300 students in a section and multiple choices embraced there as well. And what I'm trying to hit here is edit assignment. This is just an example of an assignment, an exam that's structured with question pools where there's variations. Most of these have 3, one of these has 4. You could do this from several chapters and you could have 25 total questions to be answered, and each one of those could have variation. The total number of possible exams at this point is astronomical. So if 2 students coordinate, they may have 1 or 2 questions that are the same but not the rest. Okay, hopefully this illustrates the kinds of things that you can do inside of the Expert TA system. I want to come back out and I want to show you what the watermark looks like. This is an example, of course, mocking this up. This is stuff that we see when a problem gets posted to the web. Sometimes the tracking ID and student name is blacked out, and here's the watermark when it's revealed. You, as an instructor, don't have to come to Expert TA in order to utilize this part. All you have to do when you see that image that's been posted is download it, and we have instructions that are very short. It's just 4 steps inside of a program like Photoshop to do a color replace for that one color value off of white, and then it typically works better if you invert the image to reveal the student name, username right here. We've actually added, since this was done, the tracking ID and other pieces of information there as well. And I will again reiterate that during the spring semester, this wound up getting a lot of students who thought that they were being clever. Other students didn't realize that the degree of randomization was high enough that they were the only student who had the specific numbers and words. And of course, they don't know. You see here that the numbers are in a reddish font, but we have a mode now that allows you as the instructor to turn that off. And on exams, we suggest that you do, so that the font color is the same for everything. And at that point, the students do not know which words and which numbers are changed around. Okay, let's talk about closing out on the system tour and frequently asked questions. The cost for physics were $32.50 per semester, $21.67 per quarter. We put a $65 cap on the introductory sequence. So even if you have to retake Physics 1 and Physics 2, one or the other or both, you're still not going to be charged more than 2 semesters worth of Expert TA. For OpenStax Enhanced Biology and Astronomy, the price is $35, and that's for either a semester or a quarter. For OpenStax Anatomy and Physiology, US History, Psychology, we have primarily the multiple choice questions and the test bank only. And as such, there's a corresponding $25 per semester or quarter charge there. We are going to be building out similar materials, probably next for anatomy and physiology. For drag and drop labeling of the circulatory system would be a great example there. And then we have the pricing for our secure testing environment with instructor custom content. If you're in a subject that's not one of the ones listed above, we can still help out. We can still get all of your problems into our system to be deployed that way, and the price is $25 per student per semester or quarter. On the content development, you're going to be able to build out basic question types on your own. For more advanced question types, our team's going to be happy to help you to get those in. We also do have LMS integration, single sign-on and grade sync, and then we have deeper integration. It's under development, and it's going to be coming soon. And then finally,
giving
we
questions
do
that
a
are
lot
more
of digital
long
publishing,
format,
like
telling you a
essays
little
that
more
you're
about
asking
ourselves.
students to
So
write.
we have
Then
agreements
maybe
with
these tools
University of
are
Maryland
not going to be as effective
where
for
you need
14
plagiarism
of
detection
their
software
undergraduate courses
to
all that
aid
have
you
a
to
lab
find out a
component.
student
We have
done something like gone to
digitally
Wikipedia and copied a
developed
paragraph.
those
We don't have
lab
that.
materials.
So
We
you should
distribute
look
them
at
through the
a
expert
number
TA
of
system,
strategies.
and then we have
Instead
developed
of long format
accompanying
answers,
automatically
offering
graded assessments.
standard
Oftentimes,
biology
doing
introductory
advanced things like
having
physics or
videos
chemistry,
at the top,
you're
so
doing
that
ones
students
where
have
they're
a
multiple
pre-lab
choice,
quiz, and
all of these
they
things
have a
that we're
video that
talking
they
about
watch
are
of
going to
the
be very
apparatus.
applicable.
And
Okay, communicate early
they
and often.
then are
with your
questioned on that,
students
so that you
let
know
them
when they
know
show up to the
what's
lab,
allowed,
they're ready
what's
to
not
be
allowed.
productive,
And then
they're
there's
coming
some
in prepared.
things that
We can do this with
lecture notes as
well.
well.
There's
There's
some
some
things
things that you can
are
tell
interested
them
in the flipped
that are
classroom,
really going to
a
deter
full
them.
suite.
So the
Videos available
feature
for
of that,
physics.
when
And if
we
you're
ask
not
people,
in
what do you think is
the
the
physics subject,
coolest
or
thing
if
to
you
work
are
against
and you
this?
just have your
Most
own
instructors
videos, we
say,
can help you
I think
to
your
develop
watermark is great.
your videos so that they can be
And it is
distributed
creative,
in an
it's nice,
assignable
but I'll
form.
tell you why it's not the
Just
best
put
thing.
videos out
Because
on
as soon
YouTube
as
until
students
your
know
students go
about it,
watch
or
it.
as
It's
soon as
very
you
hard
tell
to
them
know
about
who
it,
followed
they have
through
a
on
way to
that
get
and
past
didn't.
that.
You can make black out that information.
It's
That
very
can
helpful.
take a tighter
So these are
crop,
some of the additional
and
things that
it's
we
weaker
are
because you can't
always
use it
asked
as a
about
true
and wanted to
deterrent
go
out
ahead
of
and
the
talk
gate.
about.
The
Let's
strongest
close
feature
out
that
on the
we got,
academic
and
integrity
now with this
portion.
offline tool,
Let's do a
we have
final
for
summary
you,
of
you're
tools.
equipped with.
I'm not going to read this
Is
whole table,
randomization.
but we're going to
of
make
numbers
this
and words,
PowerPoint
so that each student has
collection
a
available
unique
to you.
statement. You can read
Why
through
is this
here.
so powerful?
Some of the things
Because
we
then you
talked
tell the
about
students that you're
earlier
doing
at the
it,
very
and there's
beginning
nothing that they
is
can do
communication
about
with
it.
your students. So
They
they
get
get
the
the
problem
recommendation,
presented
the
to
honor
them.
code terms of
They have
service,
no idea
and
which
the
words and phrases,
custom
whether it's the
problem
attorney on
to
the balcony,
reiterate
that
that
video
firefighter on the
question
fire
at the
escape.
beginning that's personalized.
What would
and
they
from
do
you.
on a timed
That
assignment with the timer
includes
going?
some
Are they
very
going to rewrite the problem and paraphrase
about
it?
why
Hope
they
they
should
change the
not
wording
choose
enough
to try to
if they take their
circumvent the
numbers
system.
out and numbers are involved.
Okay, then you have
that
things like
information
question critical for the
that
person
allows
on
you to
the
have
other
a
end at
very
Yahoo
high
Answers
degree
or
of
wherever
variation
to actually
in different
solve the
versions
problem.
of the
So if they
exam.
take the numbers out,
Rather
they're
than
do their
three
own
different
calculations
versions when they come back
you
in.
now have
Really
hundreds of
puts the students
versions
into quite
based on
the way those
catch
question rules
22
work.
when
Random
the things
variables
that are changed
disable
that can
indication
lead
of
back to them.
submission. There's a lot of
It's the
things that
exact
are
information
mentioned
that's needed
like
for somebody else to
time
help them
constraints that are
solve
just the
the
system
problem.
setup.
And
We
so
could
then
help
what
you
you
out
do
is
is
you go
get
through
your
and
assignment.
you tell them that you're doing it,
configured
you
in a
remind them
way
that you're doing it. Is the most
you monitor
conducive to
when you
having
find
confidence in
students
the
who
outcomes
have
at
broken
the
the
end.
rules.
You
And
deliver
then
harsh
finally,
penalties so that
you've got the
word
part about
spreads amongst the rest of the student
removing
body, and
opportunities
it
to
really
cheat
does
and harsh
have an
penalties.
impact. So
And
when you do
I don't want to
visible
say
in
a cool
assignment
name
retards
here,
that
but
can lead
we
back
used
to
hundreds
students
of
invisible
universities
watermarks
across the United States.
randomized
We have
variables for the purposes
departmentally
of
adopted
tracking
at major schools since
then
2012.
you're setting things up to where
And
students during the
are
spring semester
less
we saw
likely,
these
if they know
strategies
about
work.
these,
We saw a
to
school
try
that
to
gave an
do
exam
anything
number
like post a
3
problem
that had
online.
700.
This is the final summary of the tool.
They took the exact
that
same
we have.
approach that
Let me talk
I
about the
just
final
described here.
recommendations.
One
Utilize
of
a
the
number of
told them about it.
strategies.
Two
Use question
students
pools as
posted
well
problems
as
to the
random
internet
words and
out
random
of
phrases.
708.
If
Both
you
students were
are
identified, one
giving
by the
questions that
watermark,
are more long
one
format,
by
like essays that you're asking students to write,
randomization of the words and
then
phrases.
maybe these
And
tools
harsh
are not going to be as
penalties were
effective for
administered
you.
to both
You
of
need
these
plagiarism
students.
detection.
The school was
software
happy enough to aid
that
you to
they
find
use
out if students have
expert TA again
done
for
something
the
like gone to
final
Wikipedia
exam.
and
Also,
copied a paragraph.
At this
We don't
point,
have that.
So you should look at a
78
number of
students.
strategies.
The other two
If
were not at the school
instead
anymore.
of long format
And
answers, if you're
there
offering
were 0
standard
who
biology,
chose
introductory,
to post
or
problems to
physics,
the
or
internet.
chemistry,
These
you're
things do
doing
work.
ones
And
where
then another
multiple
indicator that they
choice,
work is
all
when
of
you
these
see,
things that we're talking about
when you
are gonna be
apply
very
all of
applicable.
this across both
Okay,
homework
communicate early
and
and
across
often
the
with your
exam,
students.
and you start to
Let
see
them know
a
what's
correlation
allowed, what's not
between the homework
allowed,
grades and
and
the
then there's
exam
some
scores.
things that you
This
can
was back
tell them
when proctor
that are
exams were
really going to
happening.
deter them.
We had instructors
So the
that could really
feature
see
that
an alignment
when we ask
between
people, what do you
students were
think
getting
is
B's on
the
homework and
coolest
B's
thing
in
to
the
work
exam,
against this?
and that's an
Most
indication instructors say,
that
I think
these
your
kinds of things are
watermark is
working.
great.
And on
it
an
is
exam,
creative,
when
it's
you get
nice, but I'll tell you why it's
a
not the best thing.
broad range
Because
of grades,
as soon as students
it
know about
is
it,
another
or as soon as
indication
you
there.
tell
So
them about it,
there is hope,
they have a way to get past
and
that.
we
They
strongly
can black
encourage
out that
you
information.
to
They can take a
utilize
tighter
some of
crop.
these.
And
if
it's weaker
you get in
because
here
you can't use
and
it as a
decide
true
that
deterrent out of
you
the
want to
gate.
use the free tool
The
that we've
strongest feature
circulated,
that
we
we've
just
got,
want to
and
send
now with this
you
offline
the
tool that we have for you,
individual
your
files
equipped
to
with,
students is
that's
randomization
still a
of
way to
numbers
help
and
you out,
words.
so that
One
each
thing that I
student
didn't
has
cover
a
in here
unique
is just
statement.
find the
Why is this so
violator. You see the
powerful?
button
Because
there
then you
that
tell the
ever go out and
students that
find
you're
the
doing
picture
it,
on
and there's nothing that
wherever
they
it was
can do
posted.
about it.
You're gonna be able to take that
They
information,
get the
put it
problem
back in,
presented
and
to
it will
them.
tell you
They have
exactly
no idea
which student
which
had those
words and
numbers.
phrases,
So
whether it's
there
the attorney
are
on the
real
balcony
things that you
or
can
the
do.
firefighter on the
I,
fire escape.
again, will thank
What would they
everyone
do on a timed
for
assignment
joining
with the
today.
timer going?
We
Are they going to
appreciate your
rewrite the
time.
problem and paraphrase it?
We
Or
hope
they
that you
change
feel that
the
it was
wording
well
enough?
spent. If they
And
take
at
their
this
numbers
point,
out and
we're
numbers
going to
are
open it up
involved,
for questions.
that
and take the
information is
last
critical for the
15
person on the other end at Yahoo Answers or wherever to actually solve the problem. So if they take the numbers out, they're going to have to do their own calculations when they come back in. It really puts the students into quite a catch-22 when the things that are changed that can lead back to them is the exact information that's needed for somebody else to help them solve the problem. And so then what you do is you go through and you tell them that you're doing it, you remind them that you're doing it, you monitor when you find students who have broken the rules, you deliver harsh penalties so that word spreads amongst the rest of the student body, and it really does have an impact. And I don't want to say school name here, but we're used at hundreds of universities across the United States. We have been departmentally adopted at major schools since 2012. And during the spring semester, we saw these strategies work. We saw a school that gave an exam number 3 that had 780 students in it. They took the exact same approach that I just described here, warned the students, told them about it. 2 students posted problems to the internet out of 780. Both students were identified, one by the watermark, one by the randomization of the words and the phrases, and harsh penalties were administered to both of these students. The school was happy enough that they used Expert TA again for the final exam, also with, at this point, 778 students. The other 2 were not at the school anymore. And there were 0 students who chose to post problems to the internet. These things do work. And then another indicator that they work is when you apply all of this across both homework and across the exams, and you start to see a correlation between the homework grades and the exam scores. This was back when proctored exams were happening. We had instructors that could really see an alignment between the students who are getting B's on homework and B's in the exam. And that's an indication that these kinds of things are working. And on an exam, when you get a broad range of grades, it is another indication there. So there is hope, and we strongly encourage you to utilize some of these. And if you get in here and decide that you want to use the free tool that we've circulated and you just want to send out the individual files to students, that's still going to help you out. The one thing that I didn't cover in here is just find the violator. You can see the button there that if you ever go out and you find the picture on wherever it was posted, you're gonna be able to take that information and put it back in, and it will tell you exactly which student had those numbers. So there are real things that you can do. I, again, will thank everyone for joining today. We appreciate your time. We hope that you feel that it was well spent.